over at BangTheBook.com. We are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. So far, we've had previews up for 27 of the 32 college basketball conference tournaments. I've written all of those here. Got 5 left to write here today. But the only tournament that starts tomorrow that I haven't done yet is the SWAC, the Southwestern Athletic Conference. I'll get that up here as quickly as possible this afternoon. But all 32 conference tournament previews will have been posted at BangTheBook.com by the end of today. I'll also get a preview up for the Players' Championship. Daily college basketball picks piece from Kyle Hunter. Daily NHL picks from Parker Michaels. We're going to be covering so much stuff with March Madness next week. We'll try to talk about a bunch of futures things and all that type of stuff. So very, very busy times at BangTheBook.com right now. We're all working hard to bring this big last push of the college basketball season out to you. And, of course, I'll be doing some more Major League Baseball stuff the rest of the month as well. And while you're over at the website, check out my 30 MLB season win total previews and all of my futures content. 6 divisions, both pennants, World Series, MVP, Cy Young, Home Run King. Lots of good baseball content over there at BangTheBook.com. And also, we'll get that guide out here in PDF form and also that Kindle ebook this week. Some issues with the formatting going on with that. So we'll correct those and get that out to you here this week. But very, very, very extremely busy time of the year here. Hopefully Blog Talk Radio cooperates with us this week and next week. Next week we'll do the same thing with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday shows because, of course, March Madness starts on Thursday with all those early games in that round of 64. So that's what we're looking at here over the next couple of weeks. Bear with us if we have technical issues or with, how frantic the timing is. Again, I understand there are only so many hours in the day for you to listen. So we're trying to get everything out with as much lead time as we possibly can. And hopefully we do a good job of that here this week and next week. All right, let's get into the Monday mailbag here. Got some pretty interesting questions across college basketball, baseball, college football, stupid bets that I've made. So we'll get a good start to the show here with the Monday mailbag. Again, if you ever have questions, at Skating Tripods on Twitter or Adam at BangTheBook.com to hit me up via email. Obviously I'll try to continue doing this here as we go throughout the baseball season, bringing the Bettor's Box back in about 10 days or so. We'll be doing that on Mondays throughout the baseball season on the Bettor's Box. But in any event, we start things off with a pair of questions here from @SecretSpy73, one of our most loyal listeners, David. David, really appreciate that you listen all the time and also for sending out some questions here. And he says, when the big tournament starts, if you like underdogs against, say, a number 1 or a number 2 seed, do your guests have data or know if it is usually best to wait till the last minute to grab the underdog because the public will mostly bet teams like Duke and Carolina? I think market entry is a challenging thing when it comes to the NCAA tournament because you're going to have a lot of public bettors that just bet as the day goes along. As the first round of games is done, they'll attack the second round. When the second round of games is done, they'll attack the third round. And by first, second, third round, I mean chronologically throughout the day. When you talk about what sharp guys are going to do from a market entry standpoint early on in the week, they're trying to figure out the same answers to these same questions. Where is the market going to move? Will people just flock to Duke and lay the 25, 26 points? Will people, lay the 40 with Virginia, stuff like that? I think really what you just want to focus on, because it's such a busy week and such a busy time of the year, just make sure that you're confident in what you're playing. I know that you want to get the best number, obviously. The number matters so much, but also overall, when you talk about the first 2 days of March Madness, it is extremely high variance. Yes, you've got power ratings on these teams, and yes, sometimes these numbers will fall, or sometimes these final scores will fall close to the spread, but you've got major conference teams against mid-major teams or low-major teams that haven't played anybody of that caliber in 3 months. You've got low majors and mid-majors that are going to be flavor of the month types of teams go and play against these major conference opponents, and people are going to be picking those upsets. And, a lot of times, whatever the trendy 12 over 5, 13 over 4, whatever those trendy picks are, the public may still bet that way a little bit. I think you get a lot of undervalued major conference teams that maybe struggled a little bit late in the season or overall over the course of the season because everybody wants to back that Cinderella story. Everybody wants to back that 12 over 5, that 13 over 4. This year it'll be a Lipscomb type team that gets a lot of love. So, you want to factor that into the equation where, you've got a lot of teams here that, or a Liberty type of team, Liberty beating Lipscomb in that A-Sun Conference Tournament final. You're going to have a lot of situations where people want to be trendy. They want to look like they're smart, and sometimes you just want to keep it simple. So I think overall, I'm not too worried about market entry when it comes to March Madness because the first 2 days are just so high variance. Really, the first weekend is so high variance because you're going to have a Duke team that knows it's a 26-point favorite or a North Carolina team that knows it's a 28-point favorite. Are they going to actively try to cover the spread? Probably not. It may happen just because their talent is so much better than the other team. But, how many times have we seen a Lehigh against Duke or, we've seen like a Norfolk State against Missouri? We see these really low majors that are big underdogs go out there and pull the upset, or we see those teams get their asses kicked. So I think because it's so high variance, the number doesn't matter as much to me, so much as comparing the two teams, looking at the matchups, looking at the strength of schedule for that low major team. And also, too, you've got a team like Duke, for example. I talk about this in my ACC preview that you can get over at BangTheBook.com. Duke traditionally doesn't worry too much about the ACC tournament. They won it in 2017. That's the only time they've been in the finals since 2011. They're not as worried about that because they always have a lot of freshmen playing big minutes, so they're not worried about winning that conference tournament. They're more worried about getting those guys a blow. Well, if you make a deep run in your conference tournament, then you go and you're a 28-point favorite in the first round of March Madness, you may sit some guys. You may only play those starters 25 minutes. Are the second teamers going to be good enough to cover that big number for you? I don't know. So I think a lot of it is just on a case-by-case basis. I think you just want to make sure that you trust your handicap of the game more so than getting the best number in that game because it is a very, very high variance environment over the first weekend of March Madness. Second question here, much different sports betting market from @SecretSpy73 says, do you like to fade the World Series teams or last year's playoff teams out of the gate for a bit at the start of the regular season? Not blindly, but in general. Does it make any difference to you? I think you, again, to give kind of a cop-out answer, I think you have to look at a case-by-case basis. I think for a team like the Cleveland Indians, for example, back-to-back first-round exits, they kind of, half-assed it over the course of the regular season last year. I think they want to get a better start. They've been a very good second-half team under Terry Francona over the 6 years that he's been the manager, but they have gotten off to some pretty marginal starts. And, we saw the Dodgers get off to a very slow start last year. Some teams come out of the gate like their hair is on fire, and other teams know that over 162, they're better than everybody else. So, I don't really think I fade or back those teams. I think a lot of times you'd look to fade the teams that, maybe have a lot of buzz to them. Teams like the Dodgers, for example, are going to have a lot of buzz. It has been tempered a little bit with injuries to Clayton Kershaw and, with the slow path for Walker Buehler here in spring training. But, the Dodgers are just a heavyweight, and they're also a team that was 10 games worse than their Pythagorean win-loss record. So they're going to be a team that a lot of people are going to like coming into the season, but they don't have to push it as hard because there are 4 lesser teams in the National League West. They should win that division without much of a problem. So, they were in the World Series last year. Am I going to blindly fade them? No. Am I going to look to avoid backing them? No. But their prices are going to be pretty big. And overall, in general, a lot of people have always said, you want to back underdogs in the first month of the season. That wasn't the case last year at all. So that even kind of flipped on its head a little bit, where the favorites, some of them got off to pretty good starts. So, I don't really pay too much attention to it. I think when you have some teams that had some high workloads for pitchers, especially younger staffs, like a Milwaukee Brewers, I'd be a little bit worried about them. Jeremy Jeffress already dealing with some shoulder discomfort. Josh Hader pitched a ton last year. But outside of those unique situations where you've got teams that are going through the ringer for the first time, it doesn't really matter too much to me. It doesn't bother me a whole lot. I think a lot of teams do try to settle into the season. I think a lot of those good teams do take some of those, paths to getting ready for the year a little bit more conservatively than other teams do. But it's not really a factor for me, to be totally honest with you. I mean, I think that if you're a team that had an early playoff exit, maybe you've got a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. Maybe the Yankees do want to start fast after getting bounced by Boston. Maybe the Indians do want to start fast after a historically bad offensive performance against the Houston Astros. But also, too, when you think about the month of April, some teams playing in cold weather cities. The offense is not going to get going until that weather warms up. If you're an offense-dominant team and you're playing in a cold weather city early in the year, that's a problem for you. Maybe it elevates your weaker pitching staff, but if you're a team that's driven by hitting the baseball, it's tough early on in the year. It's tough for a lot of teams to get acclimated and get adjusted, to that, first month of games actually mattering. So, maybe in that respect, the good teams struggle. They're on more of an equal playing field than the bad teams, but I don't think it's because of last year's playoffs or last year's World Series or anything like that. So, no, in a very long-winded way, doesn't really make a lot of difference to me. I'm just looking for opportunities. I'm just looking for spots. I'm just looking to capitalize on all that preseason work that I've done with handicapping the pitchers, and you're looking for specific spots when I want to back teams, stuff like that. Our good buddy Richard Lamon sends over a couple questions here via email and says, can you recall your worst or stupidest wager you've ever placed? And yes, I can. Yes, I most definitely can. So my wife and I watch Top Chef. It's on Bravo. They're in season 16, I think now. I believe the finale is actually coming up Wednesday or Thursday night, whenever it is. But DSI one time offered Top Chef betting odds. The first time I've ever seen them. So they offered Top Chef betting odds. We were about, I think it was about 4 or 5 episodes into the season when they put these up. And I threw some money on one of those. I threw some money on Top Chef wager. I believe there were 15 episodes in a season, and the guy that I bet, he got knocked out after episode 12. And in fact, he's had a couple of restaurants open and closed since then. This was back in, I believe, early 2016. So yes, that was my stupidest wager, was to make a Top Chef bet with the odds that were posted over at DSI. And quite frankly, I have not seen them since listed anywhere. It's certainly not over there. I do look every time there's a new cycle for a new season, but definitely the stupidest wager I've ever placed was definitely a Top Chef play. Did some stupid things in college, like, betting on MVP baseball 05 games with, buddies and roommates and all that kind of thing. But stupidest actual wager would definitely be putting some money on the Top Chef cooking competition on Bravo. Have you ever gotten an ace in Golden Tee? Is a question. In fact, I have. I've gotten a couple of them. I believe both of them were in closest to the pin contests. So, there were more par threes. It was a little bit easier to do. Never had a double eagle, which is something I'm definitely looking forward to. I haven't played a whole lot here lately, actually, between being sick and just how busy this time of year is. But I got to say, it's one of those things like it's almost like putting both balls in the same cup in beer pong. It's like, is this what my life has become? Is this a great achievement for me? And I guess it is. I guess that's just what happens when you cross over into your 30s and, you don't have any athletic ability anymore. You don't play any sports. You wind up getting excited about things like Golden Tee and beer pong and whatever else. So, had a couple of them, but, nothing too much to write home about, I guess. I did not send my clip to YouTube for those that are regular Golden Tee players. All right, Munsif via email, and I apologize if I butchered your name there. I know you're a regular listener of the Bettor's Box. Thank you for that. I know you were on the mailing list, and I've had a few people reach out about signing up for the Bettor's Box notes for that mailing list. We'll do that again here this year, especially because I talk about so many numbers on the show. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to follow. So if you want to get on the email list for those notes for the Bettor's Box, Adam at BangTheBook.com, the best way to do that. Munsif says, I'm currently working on a model for the upcoming baseball season. My question is, how quickly should I be shifting away from preseason projection numbers and be putting more weight onto actual results once the season starts? I love this question. This is a very interesting question because it is something that a lot of us have trouble with. When you talk about Major League Baseball, sample size is so significant. There is so much noise in 50 plate appearances, 100 plate appearances, so much noise, so much variance. It's very hard to put any kind of weight into those numbers. So this is a great question because it is kind of hard to figure out when you want to make that shift, when you want to make that change. And look, over at Fangraphs, way back in 2011, Russell Carlton, who now works for, I believe, the Mets front office, he's always done phenomenal work over at Baseball Prospectus. He wrote up a piece about stabilization points, when we can really start to take them seriously. And batting average and batting average on balls in play never reached a stabilization point. On base percentage, slugging percentage, isolated power, which is slugging percentage minus batting average, and then OPS all reached stabilization points at 350 plate appearances, which is about half the season for a regular player. And, a lot of platoon guys, they won't reach 350 plate appearances until, August or September. So that's a very tough thing when you talk about modeling for hitters to find those stabilization points. Now, there are some things that do stabilize very low. Strikeout rate, walk rate, those stabilize very low, around 40 plate appearances for hitters. So, what you see at the start is pretty much what you get. Also some batted ball data, ground ball rate, line drive rate, fly ball rate. Those things tend to stabilize pretty quickly overall for hitters. So it's a challenging thing because, for hitters, obviously, you get more of a sample size because you're playing every day, getting 4 or 5 plate appearances. But for pitchers, you might have 7 really good starts. You have 1 really bad start, and it blows your ERA up. So that's a challenging thing when it comes to trying to evaluate pitchers from a modeling standpoint. The problem with this question, Munsif, and for anybody else who wants to know, is that I don't have a concrete answer, because I can talk about stabilization points, but by the time you can actually shift over to those, it's mid-season for hitters, and it may be even later than that for pitchers. So, I don't know. I'm not a modeler, so it's not really something that I have a whole lot of experience or exposure with. But, to me, I guess I sort of look at it about mid to late May is kind of when I start looking at, what's going on with these hitters, what's going on with these pitchers, what's going on with these teams. And really all I end up doing at that point is regression analysis handicapping like I do year round. If you've got a guy who's got a 380 batting average on balls in play, it's going to regress. If you've got a starting pitcher with a 5 ERA, a reasonable home run to fly ball percentage, and a lower xFIP, that's going to regress. So, I need some sample size to get to that point. So I would say maybe the first 6 weeks of the season is when I'm looking a lot at what previously happened last year, and then also, trying to parse out the outliers. If you've got a starter that's made 5 starts, 4 of them are pretty good, 1 was just awful, I'm going to evaluate that. I'm going to put that into my write-ups. I'm going to take that into consideration. But I would say, if you're talking about it strictly from a modeling standpoint, I would say somewhere around 6 to 8 weeks. But you know what, Munsif? I will check with some of the modelers that I do know, and I'll ask them what they do. Because there's obviously not a lot of year-to-year correlation with some statistics, and everybody gets information in different places. For me, like I said, it's probably mid to late May is when I kind of make the full transition to the new season. But from a modeling standpoint, I don't know because it's not something that I've ever really done. Chris via email reaches out and says, would be interested in any suggestions for sources to download a CSV or spreadsheet or API for that matter of college football and or other sports while we're at it with matchup by matchup numbers with the opening lines, totals, etc. week to week. Gets tedious manually copying down that data. I don't know. I don't know of anywhere that has that. Obviously, if you know of a site, reach out to me at Skating Tripods on Twitter or Adam at BangTheBook.com. I'll pass that along to Chris, but I don't know. I'm not really sure. I haven't seen anything like that. I guess maybe it's something where you could try to build something. But again, with the odds screens that are out there, it's just the way that they structure the data. It's not really downloadable. It's just sort of there and hopefully user friendly. But I don't know. And in fact, I asked Rich Lamons about that here this morning, and he said he didn't know either. So try to find you an answer, Chris. But for right now, I don't really have anything for you. John via email says, I'm an attorney in the middle of a career change to data science, working on my master's in applied stats. Congratulations. Good for you. I hope you definitely find that data science works out better for you than being in law. But he says he's somewhat new to sports betting. I started listening to your podcast. Keep up the good work, by the way. Thank you so much. When I joined a football spread pool last season, I have some questions. Aside from the wonderful content on the website and in your podcasts, are there any books that are good intro books and or books that are considered the Bible of sports betting? I'm thinking something that's like Dr. Thorpe's Beat the Dealer is to Blackjack. So sports betting books, there really aren't a lot of them. I mean, they are pretty few and far between. There are some that are out there. I think when you talk specifically about baseball, you're definitely talking about Joe Pita's Trading Bases. That's a fantastic book to be sure. Sharp Sports Betting by Stanford Wong, which came out, in 2001, probably is the primary one, sort of the gospel type of thing. When it comes to this industry, a lot of people definitely like to look at that book. Really, like I said, there's not a ton that's out there, I don't think, from a reading standpoint. I think you've got some good people like a Joseph Bookdahl, who writes for Pinnacle. You've got an Ed Fang over at the Power Rank. You've got a lot of people that do a lot of good things from an ebook standpoint or write a lot of good content on their personal websites. But as far as books go, I think Stanford Wong Sharp Sports Betting would be the one that's closest to what you're talking about. The difference is, obviously, and I'm sure that you know this, John, we talk about Dr. Thorpe's Beat the Dealer. The game of blackjack really hasn't changed a whole lot. The strategy certainly hasn't changed a whole lot because sports betting is so ever evolving, because there are so many more advanced metrics and advanced statistics and stuff like that. It's hard to find the Bible of sports betting. But again, Stanford Wong's Sharp Sports Betting, Joe Pita's Trading Bases, and then just looking for people you respect. Pinnacle does a lot of fantastic data. I know it's not available to U.S. players, but they do a lot of really strong write-ups. I think there's a lot of very good stuff written over there. And again, Joseph Bookdahl, I believe it's at 12expert, XPERT on Twitter. He's very, very sharp, very smart guy. Adam Chernoff works for Team Matchbook. He's very good. So I think you kind of want to look for those. You want to look for more informative articles from the quant side of things, I think, especially if you're looking to go into data science. So Stanford Wong, Sharp Sports Betting, and then, Joe Pita's Trading Bases would be the best ones to look at, I think, from a sports betting standpoint. But there are a lot of people that do a lot of good work. It's just not really in, your traditional print form, I would say. One more question here today for the Monday Mailbag. This one comes from Will via email about hedging PGA futures. It says, if you take someone before the tournament at plus 2,000 or plus 3,000 and they're leading going into the weekend, is there a strategy to hedge that, or would you just let it ride? Now, I don't think there's necessarily a strategy per se, but you do have in-tournament wagering at a lot of different outlets that are out there. So you can maybe take, let's say that there's a Justin Thomas lurking 3 or 4 shots back. You've got a guy at 30-1 leading the tournament. Well, Justin Thomas can go hot and post a 63 or 64 at any time. So maybe I think what you try to do is you strategize to protect against the guys you feel like are the most concerning against your bet. If you've got a Rory 3 shots back, a Dustin Johnson 3 or 4 shots back, a Justin Thomas 3 or 4 shots back, those are the guys I would look to hedge with. If you've got somebody else up there like a Siwoo Kim or a Chesson Hadley or, some kind of player like that who may be a solid player but isn't likely to post the type of score that will chase your guy down, I wouldn't worry about it. You want to look to hedge against guys that'll go out there and maybe post a 64 or a 65, all of a sudden be tied going into Sunday or have a shot or 2 lead. So that would be my strategy, is the guys with the highest upside, the guys with the best chances to go low, I would look to take a piece of them, 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, something like that, kind of protect against that 30-1. And obviously, you don't want to cut into it too much. If you've got a half unit on a 30-1, you're looking to win 15 units. Well, maybe you want to do a half unit on these 7-1 hedges or, something like that to give yourself some sort of profit margin. But that's what I would look to do. I would look to hedge against the guys that have the best chance of going low and screwing your bet over, like a Justin Thomas, a Rory, a DJ, maybe to a lesser extent a Jason Day, a Bryson DeChambeau. If it's a really tough course, a Brooks Koepka type guy, that's what I would do. Hedge against the biggest names, the elite of the elite that are in the field or are kind of, sniffing around the leaderboard. That's what I would look to do personally. But golf is such a high variance game. Anything can happen. You start missing putts, all of a sudden you go from leading the tournament to being 3 or 4 shots back. So that's what I would look to do. Catch a piece of the guys that pose the biggest threat, of the guys that have the most upside, over that final day or over those final 2 days. So that would be my strategy there. And again, if you've got a guy that's 3 or 4 shots back, he probably is going to be in that 7 to 8 to 10 to 1 range. I think at that point, a half unit, a quarter unit, something like that makes some sense to protect your investment because, of course, as we know, a lot of things can happen when it comes to these golf tournaments. So good question there from Will. Good questions all the way around here in today's edition of the Monday Mailbag. And to @Currency Kings who reached out on Twitter, yeah, we'll get you on the show here some point in time, probably next year during the college football season because everything right now just so frantic, so hectic, trying to keep everything as structured as possible for these, very, very busy shows here this week and next week with conference tournaments and March Madness. Well, if you listen to Friday's edition of Bang the Book Radio, you heard my segment with Ian Epstein from PropSwap. Very interesting to hear more about what their business model looks like and also the things that are available out there, not just to the buyers, but also to the sellers with the seller rating and all the things that they have over at PropSwap. And, when it comes to this time of year, we talk about this with conference tournaments, we talk about this with March Madness, we talk about this with everything. It is very, very important to shop around for the best prices. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter what you're buying. You want to get the most bang for your buck. You want to get the most equity for your dollar. You want to make sure you're getting the best. And at PropSwap, you're going to find the best numbers on futures. PropSwap is a marketplace where people buy and sell active sports bets. And we talked about that on Friday, just the vast array of sports betting tickets that are out there. NCAA Championship, conference tournaments, NFL props for passing yards. There's even some college hockey futures tickets on there, NHL, NBA Division, Conference, Championship, all kinds of stuff over at PropSwap. Last year, thousands of tickets were sold at odds better than any sports book, including one customer who bought a Warriors to win the championship ticket at 2-1 odds. You could not find 2-1 anywhere for the Warriors to win that tournament. But because you're buying that bet from another person, sellers are able to offer you their bet at odds that sportsbooks would never offer. So start getting the best number by going to PropSwap.com/BTB. Again, PropSwap.com/BTB. If you missed Friday's segment with Ian, go back and check that out. It was a very good, quick 20 minutes talking about the business and what's available over there and, of course, what they're expecting here during the month of March. But, again, very good opportunity for you, whether you're looking to hedge a future that you have, whether you're looking to, get some profit out of a future without shelling out more money to hedge, or if you just want some skin in the game, want to get involved. It's legal to buy these tickets in 12 different states. You head to PropSwap.com/BTB. You can see which ones those are. So, yeah, PropSwap, very cool place, very cool idea, very interesting idea to say the least. Again, shopping around for the best price is so important here. So, along with checking out your usual outlets, see what the prices look like over at PropSwap.com/BTB. Man, this is such a crazy busy time of year, to say the least here. So we've got a lot of things that we're trying to get to on a daily basis on Bang the Book Radio and also over at BangTheBook.com. So like I said, bear with us in terms of, just throwing so much information at you in such a short period of time. It's just, it's crazy right now, and I mean, I'm writing college basketball conference tournament pieces until about 5 or 10 minutes before the show. It's one of those things where we're very happy to do it. We're very happy to bring it to you. It is definitely a commitment, and certainly it's a commitment for you to listen as well. So thank you to everybody that listens regularly. Thank you to everybody that reads what we've got written over at BangTheBook.com. Thank you to everybody that checks out what we've got over on our Bang the Book YouTube channel as well. And in fact, I'll post my thoughts on the National League East over there today. But hey, this is it's the last big push here, and then we get into baseball season, and of course I stay real busy, and no breaks in this business, to say the least. But thank you to everybody that's listened over the course of the season here, and I promise that we plan to bring you the best college basketball content of the year with these remaining conference tournament previews, and of course when we talk about March Madness with Selection Sunday coming up here on St. Patrick's Day, the play-in games Tuesday, Wednesday. And then, of course, all the fun starts on Thursday, which is why I remind you here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. We'll do the UFC segment as a one-off later in the week, so we make sure that we still get that out. But, again, oh, man, it's just a frantic time of the year. But, hey, wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, I get to talk about college basketball and Major League Baseball and everything like that for a living. So, you definitely can't beat it. But again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, probably Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on the last week of the month as well, just to keep things consistent in that regard.